Trope number 3.
Men are just dumb, I guess.
He complains that in modern movies, the smartest person can never be a man. A couple of his examples are Red Guardian in Black Widow and General Hux in Star Wars, both of whom are generally, comic relief.
Very interesting.
All remaining systems will bow to the First Order and will remember this as the last day of the Republic!
So I saw a Man Carrying Thing video about critical drinkers, why Hollywood hates men video, which I was curious about not only because of the obvious. I watch a lot of videos that are critical of the drinker, but for the first time I actually like the channel making the criticisms. He makes entertaining short form videos. Unfortunately this one made me think he should stick to what he's best at, because this video wasn't very good. I mean, he makes a few decent points, but on the whole it gets a lot of things wrong. So let's not waste time and get into it. For full context, watch both Drinkers and Man's videos.
Already within the first minute we hit a huge problem.
Hard as it may be to believe now, there was a time when we were practically spoiled for choice when it came to cool, awesome, aspirational male heroes on the big and the small screen.
Iron Man, Superman, Batman, Deadpool? Deadpool came out in 2016. Is the nostalgic time we're looking back to so recent? Have we degraded men so much since then?
They were a whole generation of men who kicked ass, triumphed against the odds and saved the day, and usually looked pretty cool doing it.
Wait, hold on. Sure, older generations of men kicked ass, of course, but does that include my generation? Because I saw Interstellar in theaters in 2014 and The Force Awakens in 2015. If you really think about it, I'm like a soldier who stormed the beaches of Normandy. Alright, so you're probably noticing a pattern by this point. The drinker's words don't match up with the movies he shows on screen. Like, at all. I'm pretty confident that he or an editor compiled a bunch of clips from IMDb's top 250 movies back in 2016, and he's been using the same hard drive file since then. No shame in that. I mean, I'm lazy as hell too, but the problem is that he lets his arguments get undermined constantly by the images he shows on screen. And that's like... this is my favorite part about this. It's not just a couple times. The whole video is like that.
Oh no, this 3-second clip of Deadpool or Man of Steel completely neutralizes Drinker's point. He's speaking over a montage. I don't expect every word to perfectly sync up with every image. Yes, he could have only put movies that are over 20 years old. But at the same time, what the anti-woke have a problem with is wokeness, which is a modern movement. We're talking about the last 10 years or so. So if it's before that, it counts.
The traditional heroic male lead that was pretty much the bedrock foundation of cinema for almost 100 years is apparently no longer a viable commodity in entertainment today.
Montgomery Clift, Richard Burton, Paul Newman, Marlon Brando. I mean, you got cool shots of guys being guys, yeah, but these are not examples of the heroic male lead that he's talking about. These are method actors of the 50s and 60s. Like Montgomery Clift, he was known for his complex, troubled characters. He was gay. Marlon Brando, I mean, these guys broke the mold of acting in general. So to our eyes today, yeah, they look like manly men when you show a second of their performances. But for their time period, they were dangerous, sexual screen presences, deeply psychological.
Next, he complains that Drinker talks about masculine and heroic leads from the past, and he quibbles with this because he thinks the example he showed were more method actors than heroic leads. That for the time they were more emotional and raw. It's a decent criticism, but the point still stands. They were manly men, and compared to recent times, the modern idea of masculinity pales in comparison. And I know the lefty idea that history always progresses, so why get bent out of shape about this when we're gonna look back and not think it's a big deal? But I don't think so. I do think we're gonna look back at the last 10 years, and most sane people are gonna say it was a fucked up decade.
They're too dated, too toxic, too dangerous to put into the limelight, and so they've been replaced with more acceptable alternatives.
What is this image? Like, in 2023, when this video came out, Timothée Chalamet had already played Paul Atreides. Robert Pattinson was Batman. I mean, whatever you think about these actors, these are iconic, dare I say, masculine roles. Pattinson as Batman is intimidating and stoic. Everything he says that he wants. These three guys, they're just like skinny, well-dressed men. Does he hate fashion? And Lakeith Stanfield, like, what is... He's not even in like any big movies. What did he do?
Hey, Timothée Chalamet was in Dune. Robert Pattinson was in Batman. So that completely nullifies the rest of their filmography. And the fact that Tim is the poster boy for the modern male actor that Hollywood is really pushing hard for. Which I think the image that Drinker is painting with that picture is the scrawny and effeminate looking male leads. When in the past these guys would be more character actors. Now they're A-listers. At least Tim and Robert. And it did seem like Stanfield was trending as an A-lister, but kinda fizzled out. At least for now.
Don't believe me? Fuck it, go turn on your TV and watch basically any commercial break that comes up in the next hour or so. Tell me, how many dumb, hapless, incompetent husbands, fathers and boyfriends do you see constantly screwing up even the most simple household tasks and needing someone more diverse to bail them out? Go ahead, I'll wait.
I don't know, man. I think you just don't like commercials. The thing about commercials is that they're trying to, sell something, and they exaggerate things to make it look like their product can fix your whole life. Wow, this dad is a fucking idiot. Look, he just broke some shit. What an embarrassing father figure. Frankly, I don't see him as an aspirational male hero. And now he's just gonna let this gorilla beat up his family? What a frickin' moron. He probably needs some gorilla glue. The thing is, there's plenty of ads with guys being cool loners with strong jaws. That's because these types of ads are trying to appeal to a vision of who you want to be. There's lots of different types of ads. I just love the tonal whiplash of being like, men used to be badass like Paul Newman and Marlon Brando. Now they're gay and dumb like these guys in a Doritos ad.
Again, this guy uses humor to completely make it sound like Drinker is crazy and doesn't have a point, when he does. And it's not some niche or not well-known secret. Plenty of people have commented on it. And I love when lefties try to explain things they point to capitalism, or markets or corporations, or just trying to market a product. Just because insulting your customers is a very solid strategy. Nice job. It's kind of the exact same excuse they have with wokeness. Hollywood is just giving the people what they want. Yeah, because the people want preachy and pandering bullshit that only appeals to a niche audience. Brilliant job. You really hit the nail on the head. Sure, Hollywood has been struggling mightily in the last decade, but that has nothing to do with wokeness. No, it's creative bankruptcy. Yeah, because Hollywood has never struggled with that. It definitely has nothing to do with the content of the entertainment.
To give shape to his video, he breaks the issue down into 3 tropes. Trope number 1 is
the death of the stoic man,
in which he explains at length how, super cool guys used to be in movies.
Think about the subtle shifts of power and dominance as their scenes progress, the use of pauses and facial expressions.
Guys did used to be cooler in movies, in my opinion. I love old movies like Captain America Winter Soldier.
Again, like I said, this woke bullshit is a modern thing. Since around 2016 or so. Anything before that is fair game to bring up.
A stoic character is one that's generally reserved and emotionally distant, the kind of person who bears their troubles and discomforts without too much complaining.
So he compares the cool masculinity from back then to the fragile masculinity of today.
The men in movies and TV shows now tend to come across as annoyingly talkative and expressive, reacting emotionally to what other people say and do, instead of coolly observant and keeping their own feelings in check.
For whatever reason, he's contrasting Tom Cruise and Clint Eastwood in their best roles to Ewan McGregor playing the bad guy in Birds of Prey. And this is the first clip he lets play for a long time. Like, he really hates this performance. I haven't even seen this movie, but it just seems like typical bad guy behavior.
So first you're mad at his montage that has examples, that has a 3-second clip of a modern movie, even though it's before the age of woke. Now you're angry that he uses an example of an over-emotional villain, which perfectly highlights what he's talking about. Seems like you're more interested in deflecting and making jokes than actually contending with his arguments.
It's kind of like going, man, food used to look so good in old movies. Now Hollywood makes it look disgusting in The Whale. What happened? He complains some more about modern guys not being able to handle protracted silence by showing us clips of Ant-Man and Thor Ragnarok. It's weird how all of the cool stoic guys are in crime thrillers like Heat, but all the dumb guys are in superhero comedies. Clearly there's some conspiracy at hand. And I'm not even arguing that ideas of masculinity haven't shifted in the past 30 years. They obviously have, whether you like it or not. I'm just saying this is a bad way to present it. If you're going to compare masculinity in a crime thriller of the 90s to an equivalent genre of today, be my guest. But I'm guessing he doesn't do that because there are plenty of great modern thrillers with stoic men in them.
Now this isn't a bad point. Saying Drinker is comparing apples to oranges. But still the point remains. In a lot of recent Hollywood blockbusters, it's like they're afraid to let a scene be somber or have emotional weight. They have to have a joke to break up the scene from having a true emotion. It's the James Gunn or Taika Waititi's school of tone. Again, another common tactic. People complain about the last 10 years and how it might be the worst decade for film ever. And it's not just Drinker or the anti-woke. It's little people like Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese that point out the slop that Disney and other companies are producing. And people like this guy will say, but what about Sinners or Oppenheimer? That's like complaining about a football team's losing record, then saying what about the 2 games that they won? Completely disregard the 15 losses. Obviously good films are still being made, but compared to previous decades it doesn't hold a candle to the 70s or 90s. Even the 80s, which is considered the worst decade, taking a heartbeat over the slop we're getting now.
The critical drinker in a really stunning reveal. He just puts all his cards on the table. This whole time he's been kind of pretending to analyze what's wrong with Hollywood, but now he wants to tell us what's wrong with how the world sees men.
The reality is that most of the time, men just don't feel things as deeply as people seem to imagine. They don't tend to get hung up on things in the same way that other people do. They don't constantly fret and worry over trivial problems.
Men don't feel things as deeply as people seem to imagine. I have to laugh because it feels very depressing. It's not even like the main message of his video. It's just something he says. Like, I feel like even super hard right anti-feminist guys would disagree with this.
Did you completely not hear the rest of what Drinker said? He said,
they don't tend to get hung up on things in the same way that other people do. They don't constantly fret and worry over trivial problems.
Men don't feel things as deeply as people seem to imagine.
It's like you heard the first part and blacked out. I guess you heard the first part and think that Drinker is saying to be like Reese from the Terminator.
Pain can be controlled. You're just disconnected.
When he's saying masculine men don't get overly emotional or worry about worthless or trivial bullshit. I don't know, only worrying about important things doesn't seem like a bad thing.
In trope number 2,
the deconstructed hero.
The Drinker complains about his favorite movie heroes coming back in Lego sequels just to appear cynical and jaded. Of course, he mentions The Last Jedi, Creed, Star Trek, Picard. You don't have to like The Last Jedi or what they did with Luke's character, but it is like a classic trope. It's just a way to bring in these legacy characters and give them an arc. It can be done well and it can be done poorly.
Again, this discards the notion that Hollywood is doing this on purpose, or has a heavy bias, which is that they are biased against straight white men, which when you talk about characters they have killed off, replaced, or emasculated, usually by a woman or a minority, the list is kinda hard to say that there isn't a pattern. Like Luke, Neo, Indy, Han Solo, Rocky, Tony Stark, Captain America, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor, Picard, Doctor Who, John Connor, James Bond, Joel, The Ghostbusters, Bruce Banner, Witcher, Obi-Wan, Ant-Man, and I'm sure there's more. I mean, it's pretty hard at this point to say nope, it's all down to incompetence. Which I can't believe that's a lefty's answer to the anti-woke. That's the best you got?
What's weirder, though, in this segment are the other two franchises that he complains about.
Or how about Superman? Surely one of the most long-standing examples of the strong, square-jawed, patriotic male superhero. Well, not in the mind of Zack Snyder, who transformed him into a sullen, brooding, conflicted outsider who doesn't even know if he can or should help humanity in any way.
Zack Snyder's Superman fits the perfect definition of a stoic male hero, but the critical drinker probably just doesn't like that movie for some reason, and he's like, no, that's actually a bad example. He wasn't being stoic in the right way. Even people who defend Man of Steel, I won't think Cavill is playing a reserved, stoic Superman.
Dude, what is your deal? I guess because it's not woke, therefore it isn't a bad example of masculinity. I don't know, it sounds like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sorry, but contemplating maybe Superman shouldn't save kids, or letting your father die for bullshit reasons, or Superman destroying a man's truck because he's an asshole, or not stopping a semi and letting it blow up, leading to more destruction, or not trying with all your might to take the fight somewhere else, instead of a massively populated area, or saying Krypton had its chance, then literally genociding a planet, which then leads to a ship causing more collateral damage. Sorry dipshit, this isn't a good example of masculinity, especially from what is supposed to be the absolute peak example of it.
Then he goes on to complain about Daniel Craig's James Bond.
We have to make him sad and pouty and hung up on a woman who died like 4 movies ago. And when he tries to flirt with women now, it becomes a point of awkward comedy because, gosh darn it, why on earth would they be attracted to a man like him? Yep, that's what I want. I want to be laughing at James Bond.
It's just baffling because the Daniel Craig era of Bond is dark, serious, gritty. Has he seen James Bond movies before Daniel Craig? Gosh dang it, back when Bond took itself seriously. I can't imagine laughing at old James Bond movies. There's no way.
Again, completely missing the point. Do you seriously think Drinker's point is, all movies need to be grim, dark, and humorless? Is that what you think Drinker is saying? It's knowing what kind of story you're telling, and what kind of movie you're making. Casino Royale is probably the darkest a Bond film should go, and still be satisfying. And instead they took it too far, and stripped away too much. And they tried to copy both the Bourne films, and Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. And that isn't Bond. Bond is a male fantasy, about a gentleman spy killing bad guys and getting the girl. And you can obviously go too far in the opposite direction and make them silly and camp, although even then they're still more entertaining than Quantum of Who Gives a Shit, Spectre and No Time to Die.
Trope number 3.
Men are just dumb, I guess.
He complains that in modern movies, the smartest person can never be a man. A couple of his examples are Red Guardian in Black Widow and General Hux in Star Wars, both of whom are generally, comic relief.
Well, you completely whiffed on that one. Watch The Force Awakens. Hux is not in any way a comedic character in that film. In fact, he's the exact opposite.
Die fallen vor der ersten Ordnung und sich an diesen besonderen Tag erinnern, als den letzten Tag der Republik.
Then when Ryan got his grubby little hands on the film, he turned him into an incompetent buffoon. And yes, Red Guardian is a comedic character, but just because you're a comedic character doesn't mean you should be given zero respect. And the whole film he's a complete punchline.
It still fits.
Oh my god.
Message is always the same. Men and everything that they do are stupid. They didn't earn or deserve anything that they actually have, and most of the time they need a smarter, stronger, and better female character to get them on track.
He gives another example of this with Ghostbusters 2016, which I'm surprised it took him this long to mention. It actually shows a lot of restraint.
The intended humour here was to contrast his physical attractiveness with his complete lack of brains and common sense, in effect making him a male bimbo, surely one of the most tired of all movie cliches. But again, it's apparently fine to portray men this way because, as we all know, men are dumb, and that's funny.
Not to defend Ghostbusters 2016, but I think a big part of the joke is that it's stunt casting, like they got Chris Hemsworth. Like he is serving a different comedic role than Janine was in the original. I'm not saying it works necessarily, but I don't think it's representative of Hollywood hating men. It's just, what if we got Chris Hemsworth for this part and he was a total moron? I mean, that's kind of funny.
I'm totally not defending Ghostbusters, guys, as he then goes on to defend it. Hey, it's stunt casting. And of course the only logical thing to do with a talent like Chris Hemsworth is to turn him into an imbecile. Jesus, man, all you had to do is agree this is a good example and show you're not being biased in bad faith. But I guess that's a bridge too far.
Before making his final plea to Hollywood, the drinker backpedals a little bit.
Now, the thing is, I'm not saying for 1 second that every male character now has to be some domineering, super confident alpha male who eats raw meat and destroys everyone around him.
Actually, no. It's clarifying to dinguses like you, who want to twist this as drinker being dumb and unreasonable.
This all brings me to a point not about masculinity, but about movies. The critical drinker throughout this video will compare great movies of the past to shitty blockbusters of today. This appeals to people because it's easy to go, yeah, that's a good old movie, and that's a piece of shit.
Now again, could this video have been better? Of course. Drinker could have compared more similar films, like remakes, prequels, and sequels of the past, and today, like Terminator, Dark Fate, and Terminator 3. Terminator 3 isn't great, but it isn't offensive, whereas Dark Fate they literally execute John Connor in the first 10 minutes, and replace him with a tiny Hispanic woman, and then turn Arnold into a draper and a non-sexual partner, and replace him with an androgynous protector, and make Sarah Connor a bitter old hag that is salty that she was just a womb for John Connor. Or Thor, which he did show footage of, but he could have better illustrated how they turned him from a serious demigod into a joker, then into a fat fuck for no reason.
Hollywood used to make a variety of mid-budget movies. You'd get all sorts of genres, some of which became classics. But now, big-budget movies are relied on by studios to keep the industry afloat. That's why we get $300 million four-quadrant movies, because in order to succeed, they have to appeal to every major demographic all at once. So you're likely going to see less gritty, stoic masculinity in a big-budget Hollywood release because that movie's designed to appeal to 15-year-old girls and 50-year-old moms. If you want gritty crime thrillers, you can find them, usually at a lower budget or on Netflix. I think it's really bad that mid-budget movies are dying. For a movie to be successful, it has to either be made incredibly cheap or be incredibly expensive and make $1 billion. This is not a healthy way to make movies, and it limits the range of creativity that we see on screen.
Fucking horseshit. This idea that masculine men isn't popular is bullshit. Top Gun Maverick disproves this. Godzilla Minus One disproves this. John Wick disproves this. Nobody disproves this. Reacher disproves this. Landman and most of Taylor Sheridan created stuff disproves this. And this whole Hollywood just wants to appeal to everyone theory. Maybe they do, but it's fucking stupid. You target an audience and make it for them. And if it's good at satisfying that audience, then you have the possibility of attracting other audiences, like Barbie. That movie was made for women. Guess what? It was highly successful. Most of Nolan's movies are made for men. And he's the most successful filmmaker of the last 20 years. Same with Quentin Tarantino. But where you get into problems is taking a property that was made for men and turning it into something made for women. Like Star Wars or Marvel. Now they're failing.
There's one line earlier in the video that always bothers me when I hear it.
We've got nothing to look forward to in the present, and our past is being taken away from us. You've got to love it.
I get that the critical drinker is an exaggerated character, but this doesn't feel like he's saying a joke. It just feels like this sentiment is just so depressing. Like, is this what you want to put out into the world?
Dude literally said before this, Hollywood is creatively bankrupt. Then you're like, oh no, he shouldn't say this.
I think it's really bad that mid-budget movies are dying. For a movie to be successful, it has to either be made incredibly cheap or be incredibly expensive and make $1 billion. This is not a healthy way to make movies, and it limits the range of creativity that we see on screen. Like, this sentiment is just so depressing. Like, is this what you want to put out into the world?
If it's true, then yes, the truth can be harsh. What should he lie and say that everything is peachy keen? And again, it's not like Drinker is the only one saying this. Quentin Tarantino and Scorsese and others are saying this. And I watched a great video by Solar Sands that also echoed this, about how modern Hollywood is like a Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail.
There's been periods of remakes and sequels in movie history, but I have never seen anything like this before. People have to stop paying for these movies if you want things to change. I tend to avoid these movies, because when I hear about them, I consistently hear bad things. And once these movies have been out for a few weeks, no one talks about them. Kung Fu Panda 4 was the 8th highest grossing film in the US this year. When was the last time someone talked about it? Wonka made a ton of money last year. When was the last time you saw someone mention that movie? There was a live-action Avatar remake on Netflix this year. I completely forgot that existed. Do you know that a Pinocchio remake came out? Another Ghostbusters film came out this year. Did you know that? On the other hand, when Dune Part 2 was released, there was a solid month of very popular memes about it. And yes, it is a remake, but of a book series and a film that is famously not considered the most perfect film of the 80s. And it also has the advantage of being good. I believe these films will have no cultural impact. That's the silver lining to all of this. They have no staying power. Disney has a finite amount of good films they can remake in their backlog. And even if they remake every single one of them, they will run out. And when they run out, they will be screwed.
Look, could have Drinker elaborated better? Yes. But I think the same could be said for this guy. He doesn't really do a good job of explaining it either. What he thinks the ideal for masculinity should be. But at the end of the day, I think the woke and the anti-woke just see the world totally differently. And with masculinity, all Drinker is saying is that Hollywood en masse is getting it wrong. Does this guy think Hollywood is getting it right? Or like so many trying to pretend like there's no problem? Because criticizing Hollywood when it comes to politics is a no-no. And I happen to think the latter is true. And for me, the problem is simple to identify. Because Hollywood is leaned into wokeness, which prioritizes DEI and equity, which is forced outcomes and rejection of equality of opportunity, which then leads to hiring of activists who lean hard left, which then leads to bad male characters, which to me seems pretty straightforward. But if this guy and other leftists want to continue to ignore the problem, then people like Drinker, even if they don't perfectly articulate the problem, as long as he's near the target and says things like "you guys won't," he's gonna get more popular, and the culture war is not gonna go in your favor.